Hello students, how are you? I hope you all in good condition and very excited because today we will learn the new topics in Mental Health Nursing 1. Today we are going to learn about the theory and concept that underlies our learning for this semester. The theory and concept in Mental Health Nursing 1. Make sure that after studying this topic, you can achieve these learning outcomes. Students are able to explain the concept and theories underlying mental health nursing, including neurobiological theory, psychoanalytical theory, psychosocial development theory, object relation theory, interpersonal theory, cognitive development theory, and moral development theory. So these are the theories that we will discuss one by one. Psychobiological theory is a scientific approach that explores how the brain and other biological systems influence the behavior, thoughts, and emotions. It combines principles from psychology, biology, neuroscience, and physiology. We remember the physiology of the brain lobes. Do you still remember the four lobes of the brain? Okay, we will remember one by one. The first is frontal lobe. The location is in front of the brain, behind the forehead. The function is for decision making and problem solving, for planning and reasoning, voluntary motor control, speech production, and emotional regulation and personality. The second is parietal lobe. The location is upper middle part of the brain. The function is for processing sensory information such as touch, temperature, and pain. And then the function is for spatial orientation and body awareness, and also understanding the language and maps. The third is temporal lobe. The location is side of the brain near temples, and the function is for auditory processing, memory formation, language comprehension, and for emotional response. And the last is occipital lobe. The location is the back of the brain, and the function is for visual processing, like interpreting color, light, and movement, and also recognize objects and phrases. And if we talk about psychobiology, we have to remember the function of nervous system, neurotransmitters, and central nervous system. Now, let's see the picture. Where is the limbic system? The hippocampus and amygdala are two key structures in the brain's limbic system. They play crucial roles in memory, emotion, and behavior. Hippocampus. It has the main function for memory formation and spatial navigation. It can convert the short-term memories into long-term memories. Hippocampus helps you to remember facts, events, and places. It involves in spatial memory, for example, when remembering the direction or location. For example, when you remember or recall a conversation from the last week. At that moment, your hippocampus is at work. And now for amygdala. The main function of amygdala is to processing the emotion, especially fear and pleasure. It detects threats and triggers the fight or flight response. It plays a role in emotional learning and memory. It involves in recognized emotion in others, such as facial expressions. For example, if you feel fear when watching a horror movie, at that time your amygdala is active. Please give your attention in this picture. You can see the types of neurotransmitters that we have in the body. I have some questions. What is the neurotransmitters increase when you are studying seriously? What is neurotransmitters that increase when you are scared because you're being chased by a dog? What neurotransmitters that increase when you feel very happy because you meet someone you love? What neurotransmitters increase when you are trying to recall a traumatic event in your childhood? Now we see the neurotransmitter in the central nervous system. These are the neurotransmitter which the level changes when experiencing mental health problems. Depression is not only about psychological wounds. It also occurs due to changes in the amount of neurotransmitters in the brain. So, after you learn what are the neurotransmitters that decrease during depression, you can click the links and learning more and more about the central nervous system, limbic system, and also neurotransmitters. In this slide, we can see the biological implication in psychiatric disorders. There are schizophrenia, depressive disorders, bipolar disorders, panic disorder, anorexia nervosa, obsessive compulsive disorder, and Alzheimer's disease. The next theory is psychoanalytical theory by Sigmund Freud. There are three theories that developed by Sigmund Freud. They are components of personality, topography of the mind, and stages of personality development. This is the components of personality by Sigmund Freud. There are id, ego, and superego. First is id. It is pleasure-centered. It avoids discomfort and present from birth. It is the primitive and instinctual part. Its function is operates on the pleasure principle and wants immediate gratification. For example, when a newborn baby is hungry, he or she will cry. A hungry child cries until fed. The it says, I want food now. It's part of it in a human. The second is ego. Ego is the rational and realistic part. Ego develops from the it, but ego evaluates the risk. The function of ego is operates on the reality principle and balance the it and superego. For example, you are hungry during a meeting, but you wait until the meeting is ends. After that, you go to eat. The ego says, I will eat later when it's appropriate. The third is superego. Superego is the moral conscience, the moral and ethical standard. Superego is idealistic principle. The function is represent internalized societal and rules and morals. Example is you are tempted to cheat on a test, but you don't do that because it feels wrong. The superego says that's not the right thing to do. Now we learn about topography of the mind. Topographical model of the mind is one of the earliest models from Sigmund Freud, and it describes the mind as having three levels of consciousness. The first is conscious mind. Its current memories, it's the part of the mind that you are aware of. The content is thoughts, perceptions, and feelings you are currently experiencing. The example is right now you are consciously hearing my explanation. The second is preconscious mind. This is the part just below the surface of awareness. It's not currently in awareness, but retrievable. The preconscious helps suppress unpleasant or unimportant experiences. The content is memories and knowledge that aren't in your immediate awareness but can be easily brought to mind. For the example is your phone number or what you ate for breakfast yesterday. And the third mind is unconscious mind. This is the deepest level and hidden from awareness. The contents is repressed memories, desires, fears, and instincts. The example is a forgotten childhood trauma that influences your adult behavior without you realizing it. Now we learn about the personality development. Freud's theory of personality development is known as the psychosexual stages of development. Freud believed that the personality forms through a series of stages during childhood, each focused on a different erogenous zone. Unresolved conflicts at any stage could lead to fixation that shape adult personality. There are five stages of personality development. The first is oral stages. The focus of the stages is mood. So the baby sucking or biting in these ages. And kitas for parents for the baby is to winning the baby. The fixation outcome such as oral fixation, smoking, overeating, or nail biting in the adult. The second stages is anal stage. The focus is bowel and bladder control. Learning independence and control the bowel and bladder. So, at these years, parents need to uh, introduce the child to can control the bowel and bladder movement and do the toilet training. The fixation outcome is anal retentive and anal exclusive, such as overly tidy, stubborn, or messy or disorganized. The third stage is phallic stage in 3 to 6 years old. The focus is genitals. The key task of this stage is identifying the same-sex parent. It is important for the parents to introduce the gender identity to their children. The fixation outcome is guilt or sexual confusion. The fourth stage is latency stage, 6 to 12 years old. The focus is dormant sexual feelings. There are sexual repression and same-gender bonding. The key task is developing social and intellectual skills. So, at these years, the child like to have activity or playing with friends in the same genders. The fixation outcome is usually no fixation. Energy is directed toward hobbies, friendship, and learning. And the last stage is genital stage, 12 years above. The focus is mature sexual interest. In these stages, the libido emerges, focus on opposite sex relationship. The key task is establishing intimate relationship. Interpersonal theory by Harry Stack Sullivan is a foundational concept in psychology that emphasizes the role of interpersonal relationship in shaping the personality and mental health. Here is the breakdown of the key ideas. First, personality is shaped by interpersonal relationship. Behavior and personality develop through interpersonal relationship. Sullivan believed that personality doesn't exist in isolation. It develops and is expressed through interaction with others. He saw human beings as inherently social. The second, anxiety and security. Anxiety arises from interpersonal interactions, especially when a person feels threatened or rejected. But security is achieved through satisfying relationships that reduce anxiety. The self-system. This is a system of behaviors developed to protect against anxiety and maintain self-esteem. It forms through early interaction, especially with caregivers. There are three types of self-system: good me, bad me, and not me. Good me will build if someone always have positive feedback from caregiver. Bad me if someone always have negative feedback from caregiver, and not me if someone have much of anxiety from childhood. This is the stages of development in Sullivan interpersonal theory. In the infancy, someone is need for tenderness. So, the baby relief from anxiety through oral gratification of needs. In the second stage is childhood. Someone need for playmates and communication. So, the child learning to experience a delay in personal gratification without undue anxiety. In juvenile era, someone need for peer acceptance. So, they learning to form satisfactory in peer relationship. In pre-adolescence, someone need for close friendship in the same sex. So, the child learning to form satisfactory relationship with person of same sex, initiating feelings of affection for another person. In the early adolescence, they need for sexual interest and relationship. And the late adolescence, to adulthood, someone is integration of intimacy and identity. Now we will learn about Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory of development. It is the most influential theory in psychology. It has 8 stages that a person goes through from infancy to late adulthood, each characterized by a specific psychosocial conflict that must be resolved for healthy psychological development. We will learn the stages one by one. Stage 1 is trust versus mistrust. This stage occurs during infancy, when a baby is completely dependent on caregivers for survival. The infant learns to trust or mistrust the world based on how their needs are met. Trust will develop when caregivers are consistent, responsive, and nurturing the infant. The infant develops a sense of trust. The child begins to feel safe and secure, believing the world is a reliable place. But mistrust will develop if caregivers are neglectful, inconsistent, or abusive. The infant may develop mistrust. The child may feel insecure, anxious, or fearful of the world and relationship. The second stage is autonomy versus shame and doubt. It ranges at 1 to 3 years, or toddlerhood. At this stage, toddlers begin to develop a sense of personal control over physical skills and a sense of independence. They start to walk, talk, and explore their environment, make simple choices. Example, what toy to play with, what to eat. Positive outcome is autonomy. It will build when caregivers encourage independence and allow safe exploration. Child will develop the autonomy. They feel confident in their ability to make decisions and control their action. This leads to the development of willpower, the basic virtue of this stage. But shame and doubt will build if caregivers are overly critical, controlling, or do not allow the child to try things on their own. The child may feel ashamed or doubt their abilities. This can lead to low self-esteem, dependency, and fear of failure later in life. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. The age is 3 to 6 years, or preschool age. At this stage, children begin to assert themselves more frequently. They will start to initiate activities, make up games, and lead play. Child will ask lots of questions and explore their environment. They begin to develop a sense of purpose and goal-directed behavior. The positive outcome is initiative. It will build when caregivers encourage exploration and support the child's ideas and efforts. The child develops initiative. They feel capable, creative, and confident in taking action. But the negative outcome is guilt. If caregivers are overly controlling, critical, or dismissive, the child may feel that their efforts are wrong or annoying. This can lead to guilt about their desires and actions, making them hesitant to make initiative in the future. The fourth stage is industry versus inferiority. The range of years is 6 to 12 years, the school age. At this stage, children begin formal education and are exposed to structured learning and social environments. They learn to read, write, solving the problems, and work with others. They start comparing themselves to peers and develop a sense of competence through achievement in school, sports, and hobbies. The positive outcome is industry. When the children are encouraged, praised, and supported in their efforts, they develop a sense of industry. They feel capable, productive, and motivated to learn and success. But negative outcome is invariability. It happens if the children are criticized, discouraged, or feel they cannot meet expectations. This can lead to low self-esteem and lack of motivation and fear of failure in the future. The next stage is identity versus role confusion. It's in the age of adolescence. During adolescence, individuals begin to explore their personal identity, their beliefs, values, goals, and roles in society. This is a time of self-reflection and experimentation. They're trying out different roles. Example, student, friend, artist, etc. And they questioning family, cultural, and societal expectations. The positive outcome is identity. It will build when adolescents are supported in exploring the different paths and are given space to form their own values and goals. They develop a strong sense of identity. They will gain a clear sense of who they are, what they believe in, and where they are headed. The negative outcome is role confusion. If adolescents are pressured to conform or are not given the opportunity to explore, they may experience role confusion. This can lead to uncertainty about their place in the world and difficulty to making decisions and a weak sense of self. The next stage is intimacy versus isolation. Age range is 18 to 40 years, the young adulthood. In young adulthood, individuals seek to form deep emotional connection with others. It includes romantic relationships, close friendships, and emotional intimacy and vulnerability. The positive outcome is intimacy. It will build when individuals are able to open up, trust, and commit to others. They experience intimacy. They form strong, supportive relationships and feel connected and valued. But the negative outcome is isolation. It's built if individuals fear rejection, struggle with self-identity, or avoid closeness. This can lead to loneliness, emotional withdrawal, and difficulty forming lasting relationships. The next stage is generativity versus stagnation in the middle adulthood at 40 to 65 years. During middle adulthood, individuals often focus on leaving a legacy and contributing to society. This can take many forms, such as raising children or mentoring younger people, being productive at work or in the community, or creating or nurturing things that will outlast them. The positive outcome is generativity. It will build when people feel they are useful, productive, and making a difference. They develop a sense of generativity. They care for others, contribute to the next generation, and feel fulfilled. But The negative outcome is stagnation. It happens if individuals feel disconnected, unproductive, or uninvolved. They may experience stagnation. This can lead to self-absorption, boredom, and a sense of lack of purpose. And the last stage is integrity versus despair. In this final stage of life, individuals reflect on their past, looking back at their experiences, accomplishments, relationships, and choices. This reflection can lead to either a sense of fulfillment or regret. The positive outcome is ego integrity. It happens when people feel proud of their life and accept it as meaningful. They achieve ego integrity. They experience a sense of wholeness, peace, and wisdom. But the negative outcome is despair. It happens if individuals look back with regret, feel that their life lack of purpose, or fear of death. This can lead to bitterness, hopelessness, and fear of dying. Now we will learn the theory of object relation by Margaret Mahlers. This theory is a key concept in psychoanalytic developmental psychology. It focuses on how infants develop a sense of self in relation to others, especially the primary caregiver, usually the mother. There are three phases. First is normal autistic phase, semi-conscious state, low environmental awareness. The second is symbiotic phase, merge identity with mother. And the third is separation and individuation. The next slide will explain more detail. From birth to 1 month, the infant is focused inward, unaware of the external world. Mahler later reconsidered this phase, as newborns are more aware than previously thought. In the 1 to 5 months is a normal symbiotic phase. The infant begins to recognize the caregiver, but still sees themselves as fused with them. There is no clear sense of self versus other. The third is separation individuation phase, 5 to 24 months. This is the most critical part of Mahler's theories and has four subphases. The first is differentiation. The infant starts to distinguish between self and caregiver. Stranger anxiety may begin in this stage. The second is practicing, 10 to 16 months. The child begins to explore the world. Example, crawling or walking. They feel a sense of independence, but still rely on the caregiver as a secure base. The third is reapproachment, 16 to 24 months. The child realizes their independence but also feels vulnerable. They may alternate between clinging to and pushing away the caregiver. This can be a time of emotional conflict and tantrums. And the last is object constancy or consolidation, 24 months and more. The child develops a stable internal image of the caregiver. They understand that the caregiver exists even when not present, which support emotional security. It matters because Mahler theories helps explain how early relationship influence self-esteem, emotional regulation, and attachment styles. The difficulties in these stages can lead to issues in identity, relationship, and mental health later in life. Next theory is cognitive development theory from Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist who studied how children develop thinking and reasoning abilities over time. His theory outlines how children's thinking evolves in stages, each characterized by different ways of understanding the world. The first is sensory motor, 0 to second years. Individuals cannot distinguish themselves from the environment. With increase of mobility, the child understands the environment. Mental system develops. The infants will learning through sense and action. Infants will explore the world by touching, looking, and moving. They develop object permanence, understanding that objects continue to exist even when out of sight. The second stage is pre-operational stage, 2 to 7 years. The key idea is use of symbolics and language, but thinking is still egocentric. The children begin to use words and images to represent objects. They struggle with understanding other people's perspective, and thinking is intuitive, not logical. Example, believing the moon follows them. The next stage is concrete operational stage. The child development of logical thinking about concrete events. Children understand concepts like conservation, such as example, water in different shaped glasses is still the same amount. They can classify objects and understand cause and effect, but thinking is still tied to real, tangible things. The last is formal operational stage. Adolescents can reason about possibilities, moral issues, and future consequences. They can form and test hypotheses and think about abstract concepts like justice or freedom. Okay, students, next we will learn about moral development theory by Lawrence Kohlberg, an American psychologist who expanded the Jean Piaget work. Kohlberg proposed that moral reasoning, the basis for ethical behavior, develops through a series of 6 stages, grouped into 3 levels. The first is pre-conventional morality. At this level, morality is externally controlled. Children accept rules from authority figures and judge action by their consequences. Stage 1, obedience and punishment orientation. Right or wrong are determined by what is punished, and the focus is avoiding punishment. In the stage 2, individualism and exchange, or instrumental relativist orientation. Right actions are those that serve individual needs. The focus is what is in it for me. Behavior motivated by egocentrism and concern for herself. The second level is conventional morality. Adolescents and most adults. Morality is tied to personal and societal relationships. Individuals conform to social rules to maintain order and gain approval. Stage 3 is interpersonal concordance orientation or good interpersonal relationship. Behavior is driven by social approval and the desire to be seen as good. And the focus in this stage is being nice and gaining approval. And the stage 4, law and order orientation or maintaining social order. In this stage, emphasis on obeying laws, respecting authority, and maintaining social order. The focus is duty and rules. And level 3 is post-conventional morality. Morality is based on abstract reasoning and universal ethical principles. Stage 5 is social contract and individual rights or legalistic orientation. Laws are seen as social contracts that should promote the greatest good. The focus is justice, rights, and the common good. And the last stage is universal ethical principle. The moral reasoning is based on internalized principles of justice, even if they conflict with laws. The focus is conscience and universal ethics. The last is operant conditioning theory by Skinner, a behaviorist psychologist. It explains how behaviors are learned and maintained based on the consequences that follow them. Key components of operant conditioning is reinforcement. It will increase the likelihood of a behavior. Positive reinforcement, adding something pleasant to encourage behavior. For the example, giving a child candy for doing homework. Negative reinforcement is removing something unpleasant to encourage behavior. For example, turning off a loud alarm when you get out of bed. And the second is punishment, decrease the likelihood of behavior. Positive punishment, adding something unpleasant to discourage behavior. For example, giving extra course for misbehaving. And negative punishment is taking away something pleasant to discourage behavior. For example, taking away video game time for breaking rules. Skinner also studied how different schedules of reinforcement affect learning. Continuous, reward every time the behavior occurs. Intermittent, reward only sometimes. Example, after a number of responses or after a time interval. This theory is matters because operant conditioning is widely used in education, such as for reward system, in parenting, for discipline strategies, in animal training, and in behavior therapy. For example, for phobias or addictions. Okay, students, this is the end of slide. I hope you can learn a lot from these topics. If you have any question, feel free to give your question in discussion forum in Learn, or you can directly give me question when we have in-person class. Thank you. God bless you.